Greetings, dear listeners. Hope you're all doing well. Well, night is starting to fall, and the darkness is starting to take control. So it's time for another episode of Werewolves After Dark. Now, in my first two videos about werewolves, I shared with you some information and a story from Elliott O'Donnell's 1912 book, Werewolves. And I've left a link to the full text of this book in the description, as well as a link to the audiobook if you'd like to listen to it. Now, Elliott O'Donnell was an Anglo-Irish ghost hunter, and he wrote over 40 books about ghosts, elementals, historic crimes, and of course, one on werewolves. And he's a very interesting and very, very colorful author. And he has some really intriguing and interesting ideas about the werewolf phenomena. You see, O'Donnell thinks werewolves and werewolf sightings are actually a manifestation of a psychic entity as opposed to a physical entity. And what do I mean by that? Well, O'Donnell says that once upon a time, the United Kingdom, the British Isles, were basically overrun with werewolves. But over time, they became exterminated. So today, what's haunting the countryside are not actual flesh and blood werewolves, but the earthbound spirits of these former werewolves. In other words, werewolf ghosts. And that's a very, very, very interesting idea. And I think if you've listened to my story, Werewolf on the Tracks, the encounter that Miss St. Denis had with the werewolf that disappeared when she shined her flashlight on it sounds more like an encounter with a ghost than with an actual werewolf. And I think tonight's story also probably bears out O'Donnell's theory about werewolves being psychic phenomena. So O'Donnell got the following story from an aptly named Mr. Warren, and what a fine and appropriate name for a protagonist, Mr. Warren. Now, Mr. Warren was an orphan who lived with his grandfather in Scotland, and the grandfather was an amateur geologist, archaeologist, paleontologist, and so their house was filled with all kinds of rocks and minerals and bones and fossils. And one day when Mr. Warren was 20 years old and studying at university, his grandfather came home very, very excited and asked the younger man to come with him to a nearby tarn or pond where the waters had all dried up. And there at the bottom was a really strange skeleton. It was the skeleton of a human being, but with the skull of a wolf. Now, when Warren asked his grandfather what it was, the older man said, "It's the skeleton of a werewolf. Once upon a time, werewolves and satyrs were very common in this part of rural Scotland where we live. Now, come and help me carry this home." So Warren helped the older man, and they carried the skeleton back home, and they put it on a table in what is described as the back kitchen, which to my thinking must be what we would call a summer kitchen here in North America. Well, that evening the family went visiting, but Mr. Warren elected to stay home because he had to hit the books and do some studying. I think he was studying trigonometry, so he wasn't in for a very fun evening. But while he was working away, he kept hearing strange noises at the back of the house, and he finally decided to go and investigate. Well, he went into the back kitchen and looked around, and of course there's nothing there. So he stopped for a moment to look down at the skeleton on the table and wondered what was this really? I mean, he loved his grandfather, but he didn't believe that it actually was the skeleton of a werewolf. After all, he was studying science. Everybody knows werewolves don't exist. And it was just then that he heard on a nearby window, and looking up, he was shocked to see the face of a wolf, the head of a wolf on a slender human neck, staring in at him with an expression of diabolical malignity. It was a werewolf. And he was positive it was a werewolf. He could see the long snout and the snarling mouth and the white sharp teeth and the green glowing eyes and the pointed ears. And as Warren watched in horror, it raised a slender white hand with long slender fingers ending in big claws, the hands of a woman. And he was startled to realize this werewolf is female. It's a she-werewolf. And what does she intend to do? Is she planning on breaking the glass and getting inside the house and attacking me to rend and tear my flesh and devour me? Or does she have more amorous intentions? Well, Warren wasn't going to waste time. He wasn't going to hang around and find out. He ran to his room and locked himself in and waited till the rest of the family came home. And when they did, he took his grandfather aside and explained to him what had happened. And the next day, Warren and his grandfather were seen rowing a boat out into the middle of a nearby lake, where they tossed the skeleton over the side into an area of deep water. And after that, neither Warren or anyone else in the family were ever troubled by the werewolf or by any werewolves ever again. So as I say, I'm quite taken with this idea that so much of our strange phenomena is actually psychic phenomena rather than physical phenomena. And I think especially in all the sightings of dog men that we have here these days in North America, maybe once upon a time North America was home to real flesh and blood dog men, but they're now extinct. So when people have an encounter, what they're seeing is the earthbound spirit of a dog man, a ghost. And maybe this will explain some of the Sasquatch sightings that we have. Now, we live here in Saskatchewan, where once upon a time, many millions of years ago, dinosaurs like Tyrannosaurus rex roamed the earth. Well, I don't know whether dinosaurs have earthbound spirits or not, but I'll tell you, I'd hate like hell to be chased some night by the ghost of a T-Rex, because I know it would not be after me for any amorous intentions. No, I'd be supper, like a Happy Meal on two legs. So no, thanks. But thank you, dear listeners, for watching tonight. Stay safe, stay subscribed. If this is your first visit, please consider subscribing. My name is Warren, and I tell original horror stories and tales about werewolves. And of course, stay safe. And I'm now going to ask the lovely and talented camera crew to give us a panorama shot of the rather darkening and ominous surroundings. Don't see any ghost werewolves or T-Rex around, but you never know. So I'll get out of the way. But till midnight, cheers.